Welcome back, everybody. So just before we introduce our panelists, I just want to say this. So the British government say that reparations are not the answer. Although up until 2015, taxes were unjustly extorted without the consent of British taxpayers to clear the debt, as was mentioned in the song, that the United Kingdom government incurred by questioningly awarding compensation to the enslavers with the passing of the 1833 Slavery Abolition Act, which came into force on the 1st of August, 1834. As African heritage communities prepare to continue their 7-year new wave of reparations protest, taking place on the 1st of August, commemorated as Emancipation Day, we will hear more about the rationale for what is being organized this year as the African Emancipation Day Reparations Rebellion Groundings instead of a march, and the Green Party support for the Stop the Maangamizi campaign, demand for the UK government to commit to an all-party parliamentary commission of inquiry for truth and reparatory justice in the recently passed historic Lambeth Green Party initiated cross-party Lambeth Council motion on atonement and reparations for the United Kingdom's transatlantic traffic of enslaved Africans. I'll now pass over to Alejandra, who will introduce our panelists.
Hello, so we're very lucky today to have a wide array of panelists with us speaking today. First of all, we've got Esther Stanford-Xosei. She's the spokesperson of African Emancipation Day Reparations March Committee and Coordinator General for Stop the Maangamizi, We Charge Genocide, Ecocide campaign. Then we've got Councillor Scott Ainslie, who's a Lambeth Green Party, Derry Amokwando for Roads Must Fall from Oxford University, Sev Ture from Tribe Named Atari, and Adetola Steph Onamade from Extinction Rebellion Youth. So I'd like to start with a first question for Esther here, and it's what is and why the need for the Reparations Rebellion Groundings? Hi, Esther.
Hi, greetings everybody. Okay, so I have a message that I've been asked to give on behalf of the Stop the Maangamizi, We Charge Genocide, Ecocide campaign and the African Emancipation Day Reparations March Committee. And as a partnership, we felt it was necessary to hold this press conference, a media briefing, so that we could explain more about the meaning of and the rationale for the 1st of Mosiah, otherwise known as August, Reparations Rebellion Groundings. So the meaning of groundings is popularized by African Guyanese scholar, activist, historian, Dr. Walter Rodney, are popular education and mobilization sessions with grassroots forces, including socially marginalized groups, workers, women, and youth, including those in our street organizations, for organizing cells of resistance and action towards the concrete struggle for a new society and another world. The groundings therefore become necessary because we have to be more than about just what feels good to us if we want to get action on our demands for a participatory democratic reparations process by way of the all-party parliamentary commission of inquiry for truth and reparatory justice. We have been marching now for 6 years, and the 1st of Mosiah, August, makes the 7th year of commemorating through righteous resistance, so-called Emancipation Day, which in itself was what we refer to as a Maangamizi, meaning African Holocaust, crime against humanity. We know, as has been said, that it was only in 2015 that the British government finally finished paying off the 1833 slavery abolition loan. And so for 180 years, until 2015, the UK government had serviced a debt created by massive public borrowing in 1835, which was used, as has been said, to compensate British enslavers for the loss of their so-called property in our African foreparents during the period that was deceitfully known as emancipation. As fellow scholar activist in the International Network of Scholars and Activists for African Reparations, INASAR, Dr. Chris Manjapra argues, the financial dimension of emancipation constituted what is termed necro-speculation, whereby the accounting procedures of emancipation in the British Empire appropriated financial value not just from living enslaved African human beings, but also from those who were registered as deceased and absent, especially including those who had run away. The British state, therefore, oversaw and directed an intergenerational regime of unjust enrichment for the enslaver class and their progeny, as well as unjust impoverishment that plundered wealth from enslaved African heritage communities and our descendants to enrich the accounts of British racial capitalist imperial order. Not only did this act set the template which came to be replicated across other European empires, it has also kept us as subsequent generations of African heritage communities in a permanent state of injury and resulted in global anti-Blackness and its specific form of Afrophobia, for which many of our young people especially have been in resistance to, largely catalyzed by the execution of George Floyd in May. And it is truly an honor to have a panel today that includes several younger persons. We are therefore right to ask, how could a government continue to pay that loan until 2015 and not even acknowledge the criminality in that, and yet have the audacity to consistently tell us that reparations are not the answer? Let me state very clearly, when we have marched in previous years and handed in the Stop the Maangamizi petition, we have been calling for recognition of our right to holistic reparations, and reparations are a process of the repairing and remaking of a people who are in the process and practice of repairing, renewing, and remaking the world. It is therefore important to repair the narrative of our long struggle for reparatory justice and elevate the concepts that have driven and sustained it throughout all generations. Rightly defined, the struggle for reparations is a struggle for justice for a people, accountability from the oppressors, and an ethical model for the world of how to treat a grievously injured people. At its core, reparations have been about stopping the Maangamizi, otherwise known as cessation of violations, building an alternative world system based on global justice, and restoring and renewing our own homeland of Africa. Every generation we have had since the beginning of the Maangamizi has articulated the notion of reparations in such a way that ensures guarantees of non-repetition as planet repairs, which are holistic repairs as articulated in the Professor Chinwezu reparations framework that we use in the International Social Movement for African Reparations, as well as stopping the harm of ecocidal extractivism, despoilation of our Earth Mother, which sustains all life, and repairs to our environment, as well as to our personhood. After all, our Mother Earth is being killed. And as Uta Phillips rightly said, those who are killing it have names and addresses. For it is just 100 companies that are responsible for more than 70% of the world's greenhouse gas emissions. These companies and those that run them have gotten rich on the backs of literally all life on Earth. Their so-called business model relies on the destruction of the only home that humanity has ever known. And combined, they control the majority of the world's mineral rights, the right to exploit the remaining unextracted oil, gas, and coal. It was just in 2016 that we were made aware in the War on Want report, The New Colonialism, Britain's scramble for Africa's energy and mineral resources, notably gold, platinum, diamond, copper, oil, gas, and coal, that our motherland, Africa, is today facing a new colonial invasion, no less devastating in scale and impact than that which it suffered during the 18th and 19th centuries. At the forefront of this new scramble for Africa are British companies, actively aided and abetted by the British government. In this generation, one of our urgent tasks as people kidnapped and stolen from Africa is that we must recognize that our claim to redress is premised on our right to Africa and its deprivation, and this is a socio-cultural and economic right which prolongs our dispossession, globalization, global marginalization and oppression that deforms the quality of Black life wherever we are. We live in a surreal time where Maangamizi perpetrators are through psych ops and hostile propaganda seeking to get us into giving up our rightful claim to Africa. That is the material base which is providing prosperity and power to our contemporary oppressors, and that which will secure our own futures, which is a totally unified and liberated Africa that can provide for the community self-defense and material needs of all her children, both those at home and abroad. So despite the fact that our struggle for reparations is a long overdue demand for what by the tenets of justice is rightfully ours, and that securing the financial component of reparations will be meaningful only if it serves the holistic purpose and strengthens the integral whole of our nation and community building self-repair processes, we are also cognizant that there can be no reparations of any kind on a dead or dying planet. At a time when there is widespread focus on Black lives, we are called to re-examine how potent such a sentiment is, given the fact that millions of lives in Africa, the Caribbean, and other parts of Abya-Yala, the so-called Americas, are being destroyed through crimes of genocide and ecocide right now. And our people are dying first as a result of the climate and ecological crisis. So we have to be about doing that which we know will secure our lives and those of subsequent generations. At this time, there is a need for us as African heritage communities to forge principled operational unity in order to harness our people's power to confront the existential threats that we now face. These being the apocalyptic warnings of impending 4 degrees of warming given by the UK Government Committee on Climate Change report, which will endanger our very existence on Mother Earth, and that of all essential life support systems that we need in order to survive and thrive. The intergenerational harms of anti-Black racism and Afrophobia, the ecocidal and genocidal social, economic and environmental crisis, the real potential for massive depopulation as a result of chemical and biological weapons and other emerging technologies targeting Africans for extermination based on our genomic profiles in the name of eco-fascist environmentalism and the guise of poverty reduction. The weaponization of COVID-19 and other pandemics, in addition to state-sanctioned violence and killings by police, prison, psychiatric and immigration detention officers. It is very clear that these existential threats make it urgent that resources being looted from the extractivist plunder of Africa and Abya Yala need to be redirected to those from whom they are being looted as an urgent matter of reparatory justice now, so that such resources can be used for our people's own self-determined actions for planet repairs. In my concluding comments, it is therefore fitting that the theme for the Reparations Rebellion Groundings taking place on the 1st of Mosiah, August, is uniting to stop the Maangamizi for our very survival, planet repairs now. It is important to stress that this will be a locking down of Brixton, in particular Brixton Road, on this day, and enforcing a traffic-free zone. We are going to be doing so in our little contribution to lowering pollution levels in the area. A finding of the 2019 Mayor's Annual Survey of London was that Lambeth is among the worst boroughs in central London for action on air pollution, and that it's breaking legal air pollution limits. So this really gives local context to the reality of our people who have been prevented from breathing for centuries. So this is why on the 1st of Mosiah, we are calling all of our African heritage communities, including those from the Caribbean and other parts of the African diaspora, to join us in locking down Brixton, because we are not being heard in our people's demand for the UK government to establish the all-party parliamentary commission of inquiry for truth and reparatory justice and commit to holistic reparations. The Stop the Maangamizi petition lays out the basis for such a commission of inquiry. Furthermore, according to the United Nations Reparations Framework, the essential aspect of reparations include, among other measures, investigation of the facts, an official acknowledgement and apology, receipt of opportunities, and the ability for so-called victims, which are the descendants of the enslaved, to tell our stories in a public forum and to have an active involvement in the reparatory justice process and determine what reparations mean and look like for us. We advocate that this can take place by establishing the all-party parliamentary commission of inquiry. And on the 1st of Mosiah, so-called August, we are also welcoming allies of good conscience, including those of the Global South activist-led Extinction Rebellion Internationalist Solidarity Network, who are joining us today, that we in the Stop the Maangamizi campaign co-founded, to join us in the Reparations Rebellion Groundings by participating in the Internationalist Solidarity Groundings with the Pan-African Liberation Movement, of which the International Social Movement for African Reparations is a part, especially those of you allies who know that your very own survival and that of your children and your children's children depends on the global rebalancing that must occur as a result of the ongoing cataclysmic destruction of the Maangamizi and all other people's holocaust, as well as the need for restoration and planet-wide repairs and justice. To close, I would also invite Alejandra and Robin, if you have the I Am Witness video lined up. Do you have it lined up? Thank you. Thank
you. You are survivors of genocide.
I am witness, and this is my story.
You are survivors of ecocide.
I am witness, this is my story.
You are Black excellence, full of African pride.
I am witness, this is my story.
It's time to tell your story, your way, on your terms.
I am witness,
and this is my story.
Because if we don't have your witness statements, we can't get Justice, global reparatory justice.
I am witness, and this is our story.
Our story.
Our story.
Our story.
Our story.
Our story.
You're never gonna keep me down. You're never gonna keep me down. Oh, no, no. You're never gonna keep me down. You're never gonna keep me down. No, you're never gonna.
Stop the Maangamizi campaign starts with you. Be the change. Be a witness. The fight never stops. Every day, everywhere, until everyone has won.